Sacks are often king when it comes to our IDP defensive linemen. They can help us win our weeks during the season, and when they don't come, it's usually pretty frustrating and can result in players either, dropping in IDP leaderboards and rankings. But for those who understand the more stable and predictive pass rush metrics, can embrace the sack variance, you hold the ability to get ahead on some of the lower pass sack totals to identify the players who are due to hit in 2025. I'm John Macri, and today for this short form YouTube video, we'll be going over the top 5 positive sack regression candidates along the defensive line for our IDP leagues. So let's get it. Now, very quickly, we have to understand why we have to be able to embrace the variance of sacks. The numbers are up on the screen now. Look at where sack rate and actual sack totals rank in year-to-year correlations for both edge defenders and defensive tackles, the absolute worst metrics we can rely on going season to season. Meanwhile, it's the underlying metrics, specifically expected sacks, which will be kind of our North Star and guiding light to identify who these positive sack regression candidates are for 2025. And that's both a stable year-to-year metric, and you'll notice in the bottom of the charts that expected sacks is also the most predictive of in-season sacks. So we're going to trust the data, embrace the variance, and bet on those that are due heading into 2025 to identify some potential values in our drafts and our IDP leagues this season. All right, the preamble is done here. So hopefully, quick and to the point, which is the purpose of these short form videos. So let's jump right into the positive regression candidate. Numero uno, I think this is maybe the most obvious one that anyone with eyes can identify. It's Jared Verse of the Los Angeles Rams. So just 4.5 sacks as a rookie, for which, for most rookies, that is a perfectly fine number that we can accept and still be hopeful for, improvement going forward. But Verse is not your typical rookie, not just because he was Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2024, establishing himself as the best among his rookie peers, but he also established himself as one of the very best players at his position in year one. So you start with the PFF grades. He ranked top 10 among all edge defenders in overall defensive grade, run defense grade, and pass rush grade. That is pretty remarkable for a first-year player. Then our big key metric, expected sacks, he ranked 96th percentile at the position, which immediately sets an expectation of a double-digit sack player right out the gate. And then you compare that where he actually finished in total sacks last regular season with just 4.5, that put him at nearly 6 sacks below expectations, the lowest mark at the entire position. Anytime that happens for a player, we should absolutely expect positive sack regression, because it means that everything else that matters for sack production, like playing time, underlying pass rush metrics, those things were all great and are likely to continue being great. And as long as that's the case, we should expect Verse to land more sacks. Even Verse himself, I think, mentioned this in an interview recently, because he's obviously, an avid reader and listener of this podcast, saying that he felt he left sacks on the table last season. I mean, he knows, and it's absolutely coming as soon as 2025 here. And that should have us very excited for IDP, because even without the sacks last year, this man still ranked as the edge 13 overall, because he's not just a great pass rusher, but also a dominant run defender and tackler. Like, he ranked 97th percentile in tackles versus expected. Like, if he keeps that up, which he should, once the sacks start hitting as well, we're easily looking at a top 10, potentially top 6 edge for IDP in 2025. All right, next up, a name that maybe isn't as obvious to most IDPers. It's Yaya Diyabi of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, another guy with just 4.5 sacks on the year last season, but doesn't necessarily come with the same pedigree of Jared Verse, though definitely deserves some more love, right? Because even despite just 4.5 sacks last year, Diyabi was excellent in year 2 after he set expectations pretty high as a rookie with 7.5 sacks. So he was way over expected as a rookie, and it made perfect sense sense that he was kind of a negative regression candidate heading into last year. But now the pendulum has swung so far in the other direction that Diaby should be expected to potentially hit, I would say, a new career high in sack totals in 2025, because we should be looking at his playing time first, which is great, but also the high-end pass rush metrics, where he ranked top 20 at his position in PFF pass rush grade and top 12 at his position in PFF pass rush win rate. So that ultimately led him to being 91st percentile in expected sacks this past season, and first percentile in actual sacks versus expected, finishing with a lower expected sack total than every player at the position not named Jared Verse. So as always, we embrace the variance here. We have, optimistic reasons to expect more from Diaby when it comes to sacks in 2025. That negative sacks versus expected number, it's really helped us identify so many positive regression candidates in the past, including Max Crosby, Aiden Hutchinson before he got hurt. He was on track to smash there. Jalen Phillips a couple years ago before he got hurt as well also was on track to smash. Guys like Josh Sweat, Alex Highsmith, Greg Russo last year. So as long as they stay healthy, it's a great indicator of improved sack production the following year. And that's why I'm saying yes to Yaya Diyabi heading into 2025. Next up, a player whose name I can't make a stupid pun with. It's Carl Granderson of the New Orleans Saints. So Granderson is coming off a breakout 2023 season, or he was coming off 2023 season. Obviously, last year was 2024. So he had already set expectations, I'd say, relatively high for him heading into 2024. And he's another one where, even though the sack numbers weren't always there, he had just 5.5 total on the year. He delivered on his expectations as far as his underlying metrics, and definitely still has room to grow as an IDP. Now, not only was Granderson an absolute hoss as far as playing time, he ranked like 6th at the position in pass rush snaps, and he was top 20 in run D snaps as well. But he also performed really well in terms of his underlying pass rush metrics. He set the best pass rush grade of his career, or at least since 2020, and set a new career high in terms of total pressures as well with 61. All of which led to a 90th percentile mark in expected sacks, which, again, a great indicator for what we should get from Granderson going forward, because he, like everyone else on this list, finished well below that expected sack total last season. He ranked 3rd percentile for his position in that regard. So same song and dance here for Granderson as was the case with Verse and Diaby. When we lean into those expected sack totals, as the data strongly suggests we should, it's feasible to expect a better year from Granderson in the sack column. And I think that is an especially big boost for him as an IDP in 2025, because he's also one of the best tacklers at the position, much like was the case for Verse, right? Granderson ranked 95th percentile in tackles versus expected, thanks to that combination of high-end playing time and just generally being a strong tackler. So that was the case for him coming out of 2023 as well, where he ranked at the very top of his position in tackles versus expected. That also allowed him to finish as a top 10 IDP that year, because he also had the sack totals to go along with it. And considering that we should get another year of high-end snap volume for Granderson, considering he's also a top positive regression candidate in the sack column, and considering the history of just being an elite tackler, I mean, expectations should be very high for Granderson's IDP value heading into 2025. And I think he's one that could absolutely get overlooked this offseason, because he doesn't necessarily carry the name value of like a Jared Verse, for example. And he was only edge 22 for IDP last season. So he's on the fringes of being like a top 15 edge for me for IDP heading into this year in my rankings, and one that I think will be able to get a little cheaper than that, considering not everyone is going to watch this video. So let's talk about a couple of defensive tackles now, who I think are also due for some positive regression in the sack column. And I only just posted my Dynasty DT rankings episode, so I'm repeating myself a little bit in a short period of time, so I apologize for that. But I couldn't make this video without including these two names, and the first one being my DT1 for Dynasty. Spoilers if you haven't watched that video yet. Jaylen Carter of the Philadelphia Eagles. So to me, this is super obvious that Carter is clearly one of the most due players at his position when it comes to his sack numbers. I mean, you only have to watch Jaylen Carter for a short period of time to recognize that he is an absolute weapon of a pass rusher when compared to so many of his peers that play that three technique role in the NFL. And the data will absolutely back that up as well. Seventh best pass rush grade at the position. He was top 10 in pressures. And most importantly, 97th percentile in expected sacks. Like, you don't have to dig too deep to understand just how good Carter is relative to the position. And at just 24 years old as well, like, he still hasn't reached his prime. Like, man, that ceiling is the roof, as the GOAT Michael Jordan would say. So again, don't get bogged down in sack totals, because 4.5 sacks, exact same as Jared Verse and Yaya Diyabi, that does not paint the appropriate picture of what Carter is and can be as a pass rusher in the NFL. It's the underlying metrics, right? It's the eye test. It's knowing that he still has plenty of untapped potential as an IDP and NFL player that will drive his projection as an elite player at the position going forward. And I'm 100% behind the idea that Carter can be the next great interior defensive lineman for IDP for a long time. I mean, even look at last season. He missed some time, but still finished as the overall DT 11 in IDP scoring. And he did that by finishing below expectations in both sacks and tackles. Like, the positive sack regression is coming. There's no doubt about that. But I think even the positive tackle regression is well within his range of outcomes as well, considering the playing time and just how dominant he is at the line of scrimmage, where he even has room to develop there, right? So even if that aspect of his game takes a little bit longer, the tackle stuff as well, to develop, he'll make up for it as a pass rusher. And like I said in the Dynasty DT rankings episode, Carter is the best bet at the position to deliver multiple seasons of double-digit sacks right now and going forward. And I'm very excited to see him get there. Lastly, a defensive tackle who has been to that double-digit sack mountain, not once, but multiple times in his NFL career, but not last year. So he's on the positive regression list for 2025. It's Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs. And look, I'm not even saying that Jones is going to get double-digit sacks again in 2025. That's always a lofty expectation to make for a defensive tackle, let alone one who is now in his 30s. But he certainly deserved more than 5 sacks that he had in 2024, because this is a player who is still performing at the absolute pinnacle of the position in terms of pass rushing ability. He led the entire position in pass rush grade last season with a 91.0. He ranked second in pass rush win rate as well at 18.1%, which, by the way, it's an insane number for an interior player who is getting double teamed more often than not. That win rate was better than a lot of like elite edge rushers even last season, guys like TJ Watt and Will Anderson and Josh Hines-Allen, which isn't even a knock on them. It's more a testament of just how dominant Chris Jones is. And all that stuff absolutely translated to his expected sack totals, where he led the entire position in that regard. So for Jones, finishing 3.5 sacks below expected, obviously first percentile at the position, even at 30 years old. All of the underlying metrics tell us that this is very much an elite pass rusher with elite upside as far as sacks. He's never really had the ideal floor for IDP because he's not your typical strong tackler at the position. But when it comes to that boom bust production, his boom potential is as good, if not better, than any player at his position. So definitely expect more than 5 sacks from Chris Jones in 2025, and likely much more than that as well. So there you have it, 5 defensive linemen who I believe have the best potential to regress positively in the sack column in 2025, and therefore could end up being nice values for IDP. But let me know your thoughts on anyone else that might need to be added to this list, any DLs that you believe can deliver a big year in the sack column. I'd love to hear from you, so shout them out in the comments. Please don't forget to like and subscribe while you're here. Next week, we'll get a little bit more pessimistic and talk some of the defensive linemen who I think are in danger of negative regression in the sack column, because that could be just as important to identify when sifting through potential values as well, and overvalued players in our IDP leagues this offseason. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, peace out.